And we're going to start here with the breaking news there. The International Court of Justice in The Hague has just ruled in favor of South Africa's request to halt Israel's Rafah offensive in Gaza. It ordered Israel to immediately stop all its military operations and allow access for humanitarian aid. In its fourth submission to the ICJ last week, South Africa had requested new emergency measures over Israel's incursion in Rafah as part of its ongoing case, accusing Israel of genocide in Gaza. Now, the court says that the situation in Gaza has deteriorated since its order in January and has described it as a humanitarian nightmare. All right, well, we continue with reaction on the ICJ order. Let's now welcome Dr. Kingsley Makhubela, former ambassador and director of Risk Recon. Doctor, a very good afternoon to you. Always great to have you. With very quick reaction, of course, on the ruling there by the ICJ, ordering Israel to stop or halt all its military operations in Gaza.
Good afternoon, Alicia. It's a monumental achievement for South Africa. South Africa has managed to achieve what the Security Council could not achieve. The cessation of the assault on Rafah. So the court has given that order with immediate effect. But the court has gone further to come up and modify its original findings of January, and it has indicated it has the authority to do this modification. And these modifications are, according to the court, really preempted by the fact that 800,000 people since last time have been displaced. And the court, Alicia, to a very large extent, relied on the report of UN agencies and the Security Council to come to its conclusion. It has dismissed Israel's argument that Israel is giving warnings to people to evacuate. And they are saying these measures are not sufficient enough.
Doctor, look, I mean, I'm sure you saw the reaction there from International Relations Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. And of course, she says the recent ruling there actually strengthens South Africa's case that there is indeed a genocide that is taking place in Gaza.
Well, it's still an allegation until it's fully investigated. The court hasn't investigated. The court hasn't come to a conclusion that there's indeed a genocide. What the court has said previously, and it has maintained that there are bases that genocide is being committed. That's the conclusion of the court until a full investigation is done. Hence, the court has taken also a ruling that Israel must give access to all investigation body and it must not destroy evidence, which was South Africa's initial argument in this regard. Alicia, the next battleground is the Security Council, because I'm sure and I'm certain that countries like Algeria will go to the Security Council to seek enforcement measures, because the decision of the court has no enforcement measures.
Let's talk about the binding nature of the court's decision, Doctor. And I mean, I don't know if you were following the discussion we were having. We were also asking, will indeed Israel actually abide by this binding ruling?
Alicia, I listened to your earlier discussion. The ruling, it's binding not only on Israel, also on Hamas, even though Hamas is not a signatory to the convention. This is international law. An entity that exists, it's supposed to abide by international law. So the challenge now is the implementation of these measures. Would the Security Council come up with enforcement measures? That's what we are waiting to look for.
And speaking of that, I mean, Doctor, what does this actually mean, do you think, this recent ruling? What do you think it means for the people of Gaza and the war that is currently raging on unabated against the Palestinians?
The biggest problem and the biggest headache now, I can tell you, Alicia, it's people sitting in the White House. Because the Biden administration has been urging Netanyahu to stop this assault, and Netanyahu went ahead with the assault. Now that this matter has gone to the Security Council, will Biden agree or use the veto as they have done in the past? So that's the dilemma that Biden has. The dilemma that the Israelis have now is whether they withdraw to be seen to be capitulating to the UN, that they have characterized as some form of a Nazi organization. Remember, the attacks on the Security Council by Israel has been very ferocious. Would they succumb to that? So people in Gaza will be looking for a reprieve. I mean, there are between four to five brigades of Israeli forces that are there. Now, to give you an idea, Alicia, a brigade consists of 2,000 to 5,000 troops. So you have a large number of concentration in that small strip now. Will they withdraw? And people will be looking for some form of a reprieve in this respect.
All right. And in closing, Doctor, a very quick one. I mean, while we're talking about the International Court of Justice, there has been several attempts to get the ICC, of course, to make a valid and decisive standpoint in terms of issuing those warrants against Netanyahu and some of the Israeli leaders. What do you think? Do you think that the recent ruling by the ICJ can then force the International Court of the International Criminal Court to actually take a decisive measure and issue those warrants of arrest? We know that countries like Colombia as well as Egypt have also shown their intent to join in the South African case against Israel.
These are two different entities of the United Nations, and they all operate independently. But what is so critical, Alicia, at this point in time is the fact that the Israelis and the Palestinian and people around the world, they know the vulnerability of the Biden administration, which has been providing support. The Israeli or Judaism within the United States, it's about 2% of the population. Muslims about 1.1% of the population, which is a huge voting bloc. How is the administration going to deal with this matter? And then Netanyahu is vulnerable at home. Benny Gantz has given a warning to Netanyahu to do certain things, amongst them including some form of administration for Gaza that would include the American, the European Union, and some Arabs, would not include President Abbas or any entity from Hamas. So the question is that how is he going to move on this matter? They're going to blame Netanyahu for all this fallout that we're seeing, the diplomatic nightmare that we're seeing for Israel. It's a huge challenge for the Israelis.
Doctor, as always, thank you so much for that analysis. That is, of course, Dr. Kingsley Makhubela there. He is the Director of Risk Recon, and he's also a former ambassador, also weighing in on the recent ruling by the International Court of Justice in the South African case for Israel to stop its military offensive in Gaza. Now,